Okay, here's a quick example of how the reflections work when you are looking at a billiards table or mini golf or something like that. So I want to make this black ball hit the white ball, but before it does, it needs to bounce off two other walls. So I'm going to say I'm going to bounce it off of this wall, then this wall, and then hopefully bounce it in against this ball. So the first thing I do is I make note of the walls that I'm going to hit. This wall is what I would hit first, so I'm going to call that the number 1 wall. Then I'm going to bounce it off of this wall here. I'm going to call this the number 2 wall. So when I look at what that's going to look like, here's my number 1 hit, and maybe I'll do this in another color. So there's my number 2 wall. Okay, now the next thing I need to do is reverse the order for my reflections. So I'm first going to take my white ball and I'm going to reflect it over my second line. And that's going to put me right about here. So I'm going to make a dot here and I'm going to call this R1 because that's the first reflection point that I have drawn. If I'm going to bounce it off of this wall and then this wall, then I need to reflect my point over the second wall and then over the first wall. So to do that, I'm going to need to extend my wall, number 1, which is blue. So I'll do that. So I've extended my blue wall, and I'm going to make this reflection of this point here go straight over that line, and it's going to end up somewhere down here. So let's draw that dotted red line and measure it to get our point. So I've got my second point. I'm going to mark that as R2 for reflection 2. So my first reflection was across my last wall hit, and my second reflection is going to be over my first wall hit. Now I just need to draw my lines that I'm going to shoot my ball at. So I'm going to pick another color and show you what that looks like. So I take my black ball and I aim it at my R2. So if I just connect those two, I get that line. Now what is true then is this point right here is where I'm going to aim for with that shot. If I do that, it's going to bounce off at the same exact angle that it came in at. And now my next line, I'm going to line that point up with my R1 point. I'm going to draw that line. And that means this is going to be my next point of intersection. And then from there, it's going to bounce off at the same angle that it came in at, and it's going to hit that ball. So I could go and do just a little bit of, I could make this line right here dotted to show that it's a sight line, but my ball isn't going to be traveling along that line. So my ball is going to travel from here. It's going to bounce off my first wall, then it's going to bounce to my second wall, then it's going to hit that ball. But when I do the reflections, I have to reverse that order, which means I start with where I want to end. I reflect that over the last wall, then the second to the last wall, and then I draw my lines.